we are going to talk about my top 5 Steve Gadd drum grooves that I think every drummer needs to know. Now, before we dive into this, 2 things. The sheet music is provided below this and a pinned comment as well as the video description. And if you dig this sort of thing, I've done videos and lessons just like this on John Bonham, on Stuart Copeland, on Neil Peart, Dave Grohl, Travis Barker. You can find all of those linked below. You can take a deep dive into those and just binge all you want to. I would suggest you start with the Bonham ones just because, again, he's one of my favorites. So I can suggest what I want to because it's my lesson. Let's get to this. This is going to encompass, it's really hard because he's had such a big career. And so these are just my personal favorites from over the years. We have a couple from the Paul Simon catalog, a couple from the Steely Dan catalog, and then some others. So let's jump into this with the first one. This one, to me, is a lot of fun. It's an example of a world rhythm within a pop song. It's on one of Paul Simon's songs. It's called Late in the Evening, and he uses a Mozambique groove to kind of drive this along. He uses it in a really original way. He plays with 4 sticks. You can do that in one of 2 ways if you want to replicate that. You can play with them just kind of sitting like this. You can play with it like that on the rim, or you can use more of a vibraphone type of a grip. All of you school drummers out there will know this as Burton grip, and so you can use that if you would like to, or you can just use this. I think that's how he plays it. And again, he's playing here on the toms like this, and then on the bell like that. So if you want to replicate the 4-stick thing that he does, that's how you can do that. Now, this groove in the right hand, let's break down what this is doing. In the right hand, it's going to be going on a basic Mozambique ride pattern. So it's going to go 1 and 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1 and 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1 and 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. We can also play that on the side of the drum as they would kind of traditionally. So if you don't freak out, I use the sides of my drums a lot when I play, so there's going to be a mark there. Don't worry, it's going to be okay. We're all going to make it through it. He also plays it on the cowbell, and he plays it on the ride cymbal bell. The kick drum's 4 on the floor, except on beat 4, he plays the So 1, 2, 3, 4 and a 1. In the left hand, he's playing a tom pattern that alternates in between the floor tom and the high tom, and it's going to go 1 E and a 2 E and 3 E and a 4 E and. I'll demonstrate what that sounds like. I'll even demonstrate it with the 4 sticks just for kicks, so you can see what that sounds like. This is one of my personal favorites that he plays, and there's actually a video of him online demonstrate how he plays this particular groove. And I forgot to tell you, that one's right around 118 BPM. It starts at the beginning of the song, so you can hear really clearly what he's doing. 50 ways to leave your lover. I cannot stress enough with Steve Gadd, you need to go listen, because oftentimes I hear this groove being played and there's just zero inflection. They're playing the same notes, but they just have not listened enough. A lot of times Steve Gadd will play with a very light touch, especially on a lot of this old Paul Simon stuff. To me, that gives it a certain feel. It really does give it a certain vibe. So you really got to listen to that and comp that vibe. You don't have to play, barely audible, but just know, like, listen to the album, play along with the album to get the feel. Okay, here's the deal. So there's the way that Steve Gadd played this on the record, and then there's what he demonstrates online. I believe Drummer World has a video up where he's demonstrating it. It's not the same thing. It's the same patterns, but how he plays them is different. So on just know, like the couple of notes that are in dispute, if you will, is on the downbeat of 1. He plays that with a stick on the recording from the nearest we can tell. Tim and I, when listening to it, Tim does all the transcriptions for me. This transcription's available, by the way, sheet music below this, pinned comment and a description. And then he demonstrates it playing the hi-hat with the foot on the downbeat. The other discrepancy would be on measure 2. It's a 2-bar loop. When he demonstrates it online, he plays 2 toms. When he plays it on the album, we only hear 1 tom. So that's kind of like the discrepancies. I'll show you how I like playing it best and how it works for me. And Steve Gadd is also known for playing open-handed in certain situations. You'll see that in the groove Lenore as well. I always like to, I don't just want to give you a drum beat. I want you to understand what makes these players tick, why they do what they do, how they do what they do, and then we can add that to our own playing. I think studying older players, the ones that have come before us, is one of the best ways to learn. All right, so beat 1, what are we playing? It's gonna be here, and on the hi-hat, we're playing open-handed. We're gonna stomp with the hi-hat on 1. It's gonna go 1, E, and Ghosted here on the snare drum. 2 is going to go 2, E, and then on the kick, 3. On 3, we have a tom with that, so it's going to go. Beat 4, he plays a diddle on that downbeat. Now, he may play this left-hand lead. I play it right-hand lead just because there's enough time to do it. Just know he may play it left-hand lead. Again, this is the way that the sticking that I do. And so it's going to be right, right, left, left, with an accent on that downbeat. All right, now we are going on to the second measure. This is a 2-bar loop. Beats 1 and beats 2 are gonna look exactly the same. On beat 3, he plays a kick drum without the floor tom, and now the floor tom comes on beat 4. So beat 4 goes 4 and then and up. It's not really a double stroke roll, it's more of a crushed, almost buzzed roll. So it's gonna go 4, instead of like a when he demonstrates it online, he plays 2 toms there. You can kind of pick your poison there. Now, if we put all that together, this song starts out, it's at about 101 BPM, so I'll play this at the album tempo. 1, 2, 3, 4. this was one of my favorite songs I used to play. So whenever I got my full-time gig, my first full-time gig in New Orleans, I was 19. So I was playing late in the evening. We had horns and everything. We played late in the evening. We played this song, 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover. So I have kind of a special place in my heart for these two grooves because I was like 19 and this had come way before my time. So even if you're younger, I beg you to dig through this stuff. There's so much valuable stuff there. And you'll see this type of a pattern recur in the one that I'm going to teach here in just a second, Lenore. But let's move on to the next one. And now for something completely different. I have changed shirts. The reason is we actually put a ton of time and energy into these YouTube lessons. And groove number 4, it was more of a lick than it was a groove. And some of you may know what I'm referring to with the paradiddle groove. So we have included that in another video that'll come later down the road. But for this one, it just didn't work out. So I came up with another one. Steve Gadd said this is one of his favorite recordings that he's done. It's just the two of us with Grover Washington Jr., I believe it is. So this song is a really great example of Steve Gadd's, really what his career has been built off of, playing phenomenal pocket and simplistic playing, or playing for the song, not always simplistic as we've seen in the other ones. So I felt this was really a good one to put in there, here, because it shows what he's really built his career on, pocket playing, and this song is a perfect example of that. So it's gonna be simple. It's going to be 8 notes here, and it's going to be 2 and 4 here. So 3 and 4 and 1, 3. Simple enough, right? Now, and this groove starts about the 40-second mark in just the two of us. Kick drum is going to be 4 on the floor, except for it's going to go 1, 2 E and a 3, 4, 1, 2 E and a 3, 4, 3, 4. And some of you are probably saying, those drums sound different too. Well, I actually have replaced the head on the snare drum. I've done a ton of different things since I filmed that other groove. So my apologies for the inconsistency in this particular video. Now let's put this up to full album tempo, right around 97 BPM. And I'll also say that the hi-hat is kept pretty even throughout that groove. I call them Tom Petty hats. If I'm writing a chart, I'll put in there Petty hats, because that whole, like, not accent, but don't accent the downbeats or the upbeats, is Tom Petty's drummer plays that a lot. So instead of Lenore from the from a Chick Corea album from way back, and this is a really fun groove. It's a really fun groove. So again, it's open-handed and touch, 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 touch. This is played with a light touch. It's not played with a heavy touch. So this is going to be on the floor tom, right, left, left, and then an accent on the snare drum. Beat 2 is going to go 2 ghosted here, 2 E and A. Put those together. And this song is about 130 BPM, so it's moving. On beat 3, we have a kick drum on the downbeat. On the E of 3, we have a ghosted note here, and then hi-hat, and then again another kick. Beat 4 is a right, left, kick, kick. I'll play this for you slowly, and then I'll speed it up and play it for you at the album tempo. And last but not least, we have at the end of this song, it's right about the 7:27 mark. It's going to be the song Aja by Steely Dan. Kind of when they're jamming on the outro. It's this ride cymbal bell groove that he does. It's right around 127 BPM. And I was checking just so I don't get that wrong. And so here's what's going to be happening. So in the ride cymbal on beat 1, he's going to have 1 and. In the snare drum, he's going to have 1 E and ghosted. And then in the kick drum, 1 E and So all of that together. In beat 2, he has 1 in the kick drum. On the snare drum, he has 2, he has 2 in the kick drum. The snare drum, it's 2 E and then the of 2. And so it's going to be 2 E and The E and the are ghosted. And in the ride cymbal, it's going to go 2 E and Now let me just say this. Learning these it's to me, listen to the albums. Listen. Some of you learn by listening. Some of you learn by watching a lesson like this. So whatever's your best way, but I can demo them for you slowly here, and then you can, kind of pick and choose what you want. So beat 2 is going to sound like this. I would also suggest listening to all of these for inflection and how Steve Gadd places these grooves in there. In beat 3, it's going to go 3 E and the right hand's hitting with the left hand. Those are going to be ghosted notes. It's going to go. And beat 4, we have again in the snare drum 4, ghosted E, ghosted In the kick drum, we have 4 and then on the ride cymbal bell on the downbeat, and the and is a crash. It's responding to what's going on in the music there, and that's in every measure. And that's going to be, again, on the outro. It comes in real quick, and I've always just kind of dug this beat. Let me play it for you slowly, and then I'll speed it up and play it at the album tempo.